The policy provides a clear roadmap for disinvestment in all non-strategic and strategic sectors. We have kept 4 areas that are strategic, where bare minimum CPSCs will be maintained and rest privatized.
With these words, Finance Minister set the tone for the economic agenda for an India that was emerging from the grips of a tough year. A year marked by a series of lockdowns, both local and national, that kept economic activity at a near standstill. One of the pillars of this agenda was the new disinvestment policy. And some of the key highlights of the budget announced the intent to privatize public sector banks, and the Finance Minister promised the tabling of the amendments to the banking laws in the budget session itself. She also incorporated legislations like the IDBI Bank amendments for privatizing the bank and the LIC Act modifications to enable the listing of the insurance giant. The budget also proposed the creation of a bad bank which would eventually house the banking sector as NPAs. It also set the groundwork for setting up India's Infra Bank or NABFID with 20,000 crores worth of equity from the government, which the cabinet cleared in March itself. And the promise to increase the FDI cap in insurance sector from 49% to 74%, which was fulfilled in that very budget session. But these grand plans took a beating as another COVID wave swept the country and dealt a severe setback to much of the already shaky progress that was being made in several pockets. The Delta variant originated in India and took lakhs of lives, probably unleashing one of the biggest challenges for India ever. It's but natural the budget announcements took a bit of a backseat, and instead the government came out with the 4th stimulus package. And so Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman took the stage once again to outline a package that contained primarily loan guarantee schemes for COVID-affected sectors worth around 1.10 lakh crores. Of this, 50,000 crores was for health infrastructure and 60,000 crores was for hospitality, tourism and other sectors. Interestingly, the 60,000 crore portion of the loan guarantee scheme is yet to be operationalized. The government also increased the quantum of credit facility under the ECLGS from 3 lakh crores to 4.5 lakh crores and extended the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana or food distribution scheme till November end.
If 8 items were on economic relief, wherein I said 4 are new, the one item on health infrastructure is also new. There are 8 other items which pertain to growth in general, export, and also related to employees.
By July end, the impact of the second wave began to ebb, and government's focus returned to the economic agenda. In the monsoon session of the Parliament on August 3rd, the Lok Sabha cleared the amendments to the General Insurance Business Nationalisation Act, allowing government stake to fall below 51% and government giving up management control of a company picked up for privatization. On August 9, the Lok Sabha also passed the amended Deposit Insurance Bill, proposing to raise the deposit insurance cover to 5 lakh rupees, with claims to be settled in 90 days. But the action was not confined to the Parliament alone. On 23rd August, the government announced an ambitious 6 lakh crore asset monetization pipeline. On 16 September, the cabinet also cleared the proposal to set up the bad bank. The proposal envisaged NARCL being set up and around 2 lakh crores worth of NPAs being transferred to it. This would be accompanied with a government guarantee of up to 30,600 odd crores for banks holding receipts issued by the NARCL. Meanwhile, the government persisted in its exercise to privatize Air India, and finally the exercise came to a close on the 8th of October when the Finance Ministry formally announced that the Maharaja would return to the House of Tatas after nearly 70 years. For this, the Tatas would pay the government around 18,000 crores.
These are the bid received. So the Tata Sons Private Limited, their SPV, Talis Private Limited, is the winning bidder at 18,000 crore. The second bidder was consortium led by Shri Ajay Singh. This is a consortium, not a individual sole bid. By December 2021, we want to close the transaction, and the closing would actually mean, the date of closing would mean that we will get the consideration and they will get the shares.
The other big topic of discussion was the global obsession with cryptocurrencies. Nearly throughout the year, the Finance Minister and the RBI have kept the investing world guessing on its stand on cryptocurrencies. The government surprised everyone by listing the cryptocurrency bill for passage in the winter session itself. But the bill may now have to be taken up only in the budget session. So, the question of whether India will ban cryptocurrencies or choose to regulate it, and if so, in what fashion, hangs in balance.
There is certainly a well-consulted bill which is coming through. Once the cabinet clears it, it will certainly come into the parliament. On the floor of the house, with questions being asked by members, some answers were given. And even there, I had reminded the members saying I may not be able to get into the details of it. They have to wait for the bill to come.
There are deeper issues involved. There are far deeper issues involved which form part of this, what I have been saying, macroeconomic and financial stability. I am yet to see serious, well-informed discussion in the public space on these issues.
The coming budget will surely define the new economic priorities of the government. But in the meanwhile, the tabling of the cryptocurrency bill and the bank privatization bills in the parliament continue to remain as the unfinished agenda. Also, the coming weeks will indicate if Omicron is going to pose a challenge to India. In New Delhi, Sapna Das.